Welcome into another Sunday evening baseball episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner, on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, wherever you can find me. That's the same handle. Hopefully, if it hasn't been taken, why would anyone take that? I have no idea. We're going to be doing another baseball podcast on the soccer pit Betting the Pitch feed. Haven't heard any feedback otherwise that someone needs that moved, so just going to consolidate in the same place. So if you're subscribed there, I already love you, but thank you for doing that. If you're not, why are you waiting? Go jump in there, please, please, please. And also, wouldn't hurt to, if you're on YouTube, subscribe there. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star review. That'd be really, really appreciated. And the more of those I get, the more of these I do. Looking forward to, I guess, doing these on Sunday nights, as they're pretty quiet for the most part, at least until the NFL season starts. But I imagine I'll still be rocking baseball until the final day of the season. So we'll do that. Don't mean to cough in all your ears, but that was unplanned. And we'll be doing soccer stuff. Not a lot of midweek matches just yet. There is some Champions League, Europa League qualifying stuff. Not a lot of big names in there just yet. So we'll see when that ticks up a little bit. Of course, European stuff. And of course, every weekend we'll be doing soccer on this podcast feed. So stay tuned, subscribe, do your things, wherever you get your podcasts or your videos or whatever you're doing to listen. I appreciate it. Stay where you are and keep it going. Before I get started today, I want to highly recommend my Patreon account, patreon.com/real_G Warner. It's a good spot to get good direct access to me. You get my leans across all the sports. You interact with me throughout the day. So my write-ups are posted, and when I'm locking in each play, turn on notifications, get the app, and you can get up to the second updates. As soon as I post something that's relevant, I try to notify all subscribers so you're aware. And I'm sure if you ask any of my patrons, they would tell you it's a very reasonable price. So go check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. So let's get into this. All lines quoted in this podcast, courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juices offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account. Use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So we're going to be doing this live. Made my lines on the flight back from Boston today. Went to Fenway this weekend. Not sure if I'll get a reel up on the soccer one, but if you follow my Instagram, the personal one I do, you can see what I ate this weekend and basically where I sat. Check that out if you're interested, or if you're not, well, at least we're here. Thanks for coming, and let's get into it. Made my lines. There are a lot of, unfortunately, we're entering the dog days of summer where there's a lot of undecided pitchers. I'm using probable pitchers from, I think, MLB Fantasy Pros, maybe, to try to get an idea of who might be starting, just because it's really hard to go with bullpen games all over the place, because those names can kind of change and throw things off quite a bit. But I'll go in rotation order, and I'll kind of give an idea of where I feel about all these teams and who I think is starting. And the first matchup is a good example for Pittsburgh, the Pirates visiting the New York Mets, and Carlos Carrasco. As you would have heard on a lot of my pregame.com Sunday night podcast, baseball podcasts with Scott Seidenberg, one of his favorite things, my co-host, was the Sunday night fade. And he loved teams that were playing in Sunday night baseball and then had to travel. It doesn't completely come into play here because the Mets are at home and had a good win tonight, but on Sunday night. But ultimately, it will affect and impact the Braves coming up a little bit later in the show. I had Pittsburgh with Priester starting for them on the road at Carrasco. I don't know that doesn't look like that's confirmed just yet, but we'll use that for now. My number was Priester, a plus 149 underdog on the road, over under just a little bit over 8. That feels a little bit low to me after looking at Carrasco's starts as a potential fantasy pickup for next week. Should get 2 starts in. That might be of interest to you. Of course, if you care about fantasy stuff and want me to say that, please let me know. Slide into some DMs, leave a comment on one of the various places wherever you're listening. That would help me to know to either go a little bit deeper into it or not, because I know fantasy baseball is a huge grind. Not many people play it. But Pittsburgh had a doubleheader themselves today. Got done with their game about probably the same time that Sunday Night Baseball was probably going to the 5th or 6th inning, maybe a little bit later even. So Pittsburgh's got to travel over to New York. Not a very long flight, but 2 games, 18 innings, split the doubleheader with the Reds. So that's going to potentially tire some legs. And maybe you might see some players out of the Pittsburgh lineup. Andrew McCutchen, I think, would be top of that list and not be in there. Priester is a young arm who's been okay for Pittsburgh so far. I feel like he's been pretty competitive in positions that I didn't expect him to be. And he gets a New York Mets lineup that really isn't doing much. Pete Alonso seems to be turning it around and seems to be a lot healthier. Maybe his hand or wrist or finger or whatever ended up getting back to normal because he returned way early from the injured list, but hasn't really affected the Mets. They've sold a ton and aren't really trying to win game. I mean, they're still competing. Everyone's trying to win their job or keep their job, but with all the trades that were made and all the dealing that was done at the trade deadline, I'm looking to be against the Mets as much as I can, especially Cookie Carrasco, who's just never really been the same. I'm not going to blame it on his cancer treatments and things of that nature, because I think we saw his arm kind of deteriorating before that happened. Of course, you never know why things happen, but he set some really ugly numbers. Like I said, I was looking at potentially picking him up for 2 starts in fantasy baseball. It's a pretty nice start with Pittsburgh here, but I still don't know if I trust Cookie Carrasco at all. The big question then is Pittsburgh worth potentially backing with a young pitcher on the mound off of a doubleheader on the road against a team that it's a tough place to play, no matter what Citi Field, no matter what the Mets have dealt at the deadline and really what they're doing with their team right now. They're not really playing the kids just now. Brett Beatty's still in the minor leagues, which makes a little sense to me, unfortunately for him. But I lean to Pittsburgh, if anything, and I'll probably lean over the total, whatever it comes out being. It's probably going to be way higher than my number. Next, I'll move to Arizona on the road at Colorado. Another big fantasy baseball thing is the Rockies. I think have 7 home games this week at Coors Field. So if you don't have Rockies on your team, I suggest looking into if you have some spots to fill, get all games every day of the week, and you get to play in that bandbox where there's a million. I guess bandbox probably isn't fair because it's not a small park, but there's a million runs scored. For Arizona, I'm expecting Merrill Kelly to start. I know that he has had potentially some reoccurring or potential issues related to the blood clot he had in his calf earlier this season. No line that's out there again, but I'm in the game of making them at this point. And anyway, or I have every day of this baseball season, so I might as well keep going. And in this one, I have the D-backs favored on the road pretty significantly if Merrill Kelly is able to make the start. I have Chris Flexen, who has been DFA'd by, or I guess he was traded from the Mariners to the Mets, which I think they were just eating his contract and then going to release him. And he wound up in Colorado, trying to rekindle his career. Not a great spot for him because unfortunately he's the pitch to contact guy, which is really bad in Colorado of all places. It's bad across the major leagues in 2023, but even worse there. Arizona has not been playing well since the break. They were one of the worst teams, I thought, in the first half that were somehow in first place in their division. And they have come down to earth very fast, including after Seattle fleeced them with a trade of Paul Sewald, who they didn't really need, for a bunch of prospects, hitting prospects that they really needed because they are a pitching franchise from what I see. So I expected the Rockies to be a pretty big underdog. They are a little bit interesting at home because they know how to play there. And they hit so much better at home than they do on the road. I mean, it makes sense because it's like the biggest hitters park in the world and probably the history of the world. But I don't know necessarily what number it would take for me to want to get in. The number I have, plus 160, would be large enough, that especially if there's injury issues on the Kelly and Diamondback starting pitching side with a bullpen that's pretty questionable after that. It's interesting. I think it might even point to over what I have is a little bit over 12 right now as the total. Might come a little bit lower than that, but honestly, with Coors Field totals, they're gigantic compared to the rest of the major leagues, but they still go over a lot. And I think that's probably my strongest lead in this one because I don't really know. Colorado is a big underdog, probably gets their last at bat in the 9th inning. So that certainly will help to scoring more runs with one more turn at the plate. So I probably over 12 or something like that would be my biggest interest in that one. Next, I'll move to the Angels visiting the Texas Rangers. I'm actually going on Wednesday, so if anyone's going to be there, holla. But we got a pitching matchup verified here. Thank God. We have Patrick Sandoval from the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim visiting Max Scherzer and the Texas Rangers. So initially, I actually had this as Sandoval plus 149 underdog. And it looks like it opened 145. So I feel good about that. Pretty close there. It's climbed to plus 158 with Scherzer minus 173 favorite on the other side. Over under open 9 and then climb. I guess it's been being bet down. Open 9 minus 115. So a little bit more juice on the under. Now it's very juice on the under. Minus 125, and usually 9 is a key number in the baseball totals game. It's not one I wouldn't. I mean, you could make the argument it's worth. If you want to play an under, you definitely want 9 versus 8.5. But if you want to play over, you definitely want 8.5 versus 9. My number was a lot lower. I had this closer to 8, so I feel like there's some value on the under, but then there's a lot of questions involved. For me, I'm still not really a believer in Max Scherzer at this point. He's not the same guy he used to be in the past. Was always a fly ball pitcher, but got so many strikeouts that he was able to kind of survive that. That's not who he is now. The strikeouts have been lacking big time this year. And I think that explains a lot of his problems because he still goes with a lot of fly balls, which go a little bit further than they have in the past. And he's not striking as many people out. So the more fly balls are put in play, more chance for home runs and things of that nature. I always kind of expected the ballpark in Arlington's replacement, Globe Life Field indoors pretty much the entire summer because it's so hot here in Dallas. But I was kind of expecting it to be a pitcher's park based on pretty much any place that closes the roof. It's really hard to score runs, whether it's Arizona, Milwaukee, or other places throughout Major League Baseball. It hasn't been that way, but you could also blame that on the Texas lineup, that they're just going over the total themselves or doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. The Rangers lineup has kind of been a little bit quieter lately. Certainly injuries are not helping with Seager missing, of course, for a while. Jonah Heim, who's been out and might come back, but it sounds like he's only going to hit left-handed. There's some questions in the Texas lineup, and ultimately they did a lot of buying at the trade deadline with a good team, and it makes sense that they would do that because they've been kind of out of the running for a while. But they've never really seemingly been able to build pitching staffs or really from the minors, and going out and acquiring them at the deadline or acquiring a entirely new rotation almost with Scherzer coming in and Jordan Montgomery and others. That's a really concerning thing for me. And I feel like they're kind of getting Scherzer definitely on the wrong side of his career, downside of his career, maybe even twilight of his career. On the other side, we got Patrick Sandoval, who's got a great changeup, has really good stuff, can strike people out, but doesn't really put it all together. Still hasn't done that as a major leaguer. I wonder if he pitched for a different organization that was a little bit more intelligent. I think he probably would be a much better pitcher by now. But I wouldn't be shocked if Sandoval goes in and keeps this really close to Max Scherzer, and then it comes down to bullpens, which Texas has built there significantly. The Angels tried a little bit, bringing in Ronaldo Lopez from the White Sox, for example, but really didn't do enough, and that's been a big problem for them, and they've really struggled ever since they decided they're going to go for it to try to keep Shohei Ohtani in Angels white. I always thought they should have traded him, went on, said that a lot with other baseball podcasts that I was on, but I think from where I'm looking on Monday night's game is I like the idea of being against Scherzer. I feel like it's a big number here as well, nearly getting 100 plus 160 on Patrick Sandoval at this point with a plus 158. I don't know if that's enough for me right now, just based on the differences between these two teams, because Texas is going to hit the ball. I don't know that I can trust the Angels to do it. It sounds like Shohei Ohtani will be in the lineup on Monday and will be in the lineup all this week, but they're skipping his start on Wednesday night to try to give him some rest on the pitching side. I'm not sure how that's all going to go, but the Angels are still a team that doesn't hit and really have struggled to hit ever since the trade deadline, have struggled in August. So I think they're a team that I'm looking to try to stay away from and really try to fade, but not as a big underdog here. So it's Angels or nothing for me, and likely nothing. Next, I'll move to Seattle visiting Kansas City. We got Logan Gilbert, who's been really awesome for a lot of the season, but also it's kind of hard to predict his blowups. And a lot of times they seem to come against teams that aren't very good. And I feel like the Kansas City Royals are exactly one of those teams. Logan Gilbert, I saw him live, actually wearing this Blue Jays jersey that I got on right now, which was especially awkward because I had bet the Mariners that day. But I was there with a friend of mine who's a Blue Jays fan, from Toronto. So I had to play the part, but definitely was rooting for Seattle and was very happy to cash an underdog ticket on a home team at a game I attended. But regardless, don't want to toot my own horn too much there. But Logan Gilbert was really bad in that game. against the Toronto lineup that really is good, but really hasn't done a lot this year. He gets a really nice one here, though. Rare for a Seattle pitcher to pitch in a better park than his home park in Seattle, but Kansas City is one of those. It's so hard to hit the ball out of the ballpark there. Kansas City's lineup also is really bad at it. I don't know if the organization kind of built their team around not expecting a lot of home runs, but certainly they have not got a lot of power in that lineup. And with Salvy Perez aging and a lot of those things happening, Kansas City looks really bad. And this should be a spot for Logan Gilbert to really have a good outing. I made Brady Singer, who's been struggling this year. I had pretty high expectation for him, especially how he closed last season. But he hasn't been missing bats, and they've been hitting him hard ever since the start of the season. And right now, I made Singer a plus 139 underdog. That's actually the opposite. So Gilbert is minus 139 at the moment, open plus 125 on the Kansas City side. It's climbed a little bit, but not too much. So it's about in the range that I had it. I made the total closer to 8. It opened 9, all juiced to the under, and has only taken more money to the under as well. So market doesn't expect there's going to be a lot of runs in this one, which to me is a little bit of a sign to be backing Brady Singer. Excuse me, Kyle Singer is a basketball player. And I feel like honestly the number here is a little bit low as well. So I feel like there's a little respect from the marketplace here on Singer and the Royals. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, and I'm not really in a spot where I'm looking to back the Royals probably for the rest of the season until the numbers get out of control in the not too distant future, once we get to the I guess September call-up window and things of that nature. So next I'll move to interleague, and of course, stay with me because I'll come back and give an ultimate best bet. But I'll start with Houston at Miami. Pretty good series here for Houston to get right and try to really make a charge for the AL West crown, which is a big deal to get a bye or something of that nature in the playoffs. I got Framber Valdez on the road at Braxton Garrett. Framber Valdez was not sharp at all starting off his post no-hitter outing at Baltimore, but ultimately still went 7 innings, I think it was, and kept his team in the game, 8 some outs, and then Houston rallied and got a grand slam in the 9th inning to take the lead. Brutal for me and everyone who was with me on that bet, unfortunately, but those things happen, and can't really ever forget the great lineup that Houston has, and Kyle Tucker is always going to hit a fastball over the wall, it feels to me. Anyway, in this one, we got Valdez, who probably will pitch very well against Miami team that doesn't hit the ball. They try to hit home runs, but it's not really a home run park they play in. Valdez is great at keeping the ball on the ground anyway, so I feel like there's a very good chance he's a very good outing on Monday night. Braxton Garrett on the other side for Miami, I was a huge backer of his early in the season. When he was really trying to fight for a starting role to stay in the rotation. It's almost like he won that and relaxed, but I think it's more so he won the starting rotation role because he was so good, had great strikeout numbers and things of that nature. And I wonder how his arm's holding up, because it doesn't seem to be as strong, or he's not getting as many swings and misses. And I feel like maybe this is kind of the Braxton Garrett that we maybe were expecting, 5-inning major league starting pitcher, but ultimately he's gone deeper than that early in the season, and you might be running out of gas. So that's a bit concerning. I made Braxton Garrett a plus 142 underdog at home. It's about where Valdez opened, actually. So it seems like, again, another home dog's a lot cheaper than I was expecting, which it should go the other way coming towards it's August 14th here. And as we get deeper in the season, the underdogs are going to get even more and more sizable, just because it's really hard to know anyone that still is betting baseball late in the season and still wants to back bad teams. So feels a little bit cheap to me to back Framber Valdez here. I imagine it climbs as we get further or closer to game time, I guess would be the better way to put that. My over under was 7.25 here. It looks like opened 8 with all the juice to the under, and has fallen since then to 7.5. So it's about where my number is. I still think under is a reasonable play here. But I'll keep looking, and we'll move next to the Yankees visiting Atlanta and that Sunday night fade opportunity that we had talked about a little bit earlier. Thanks to my pregame co-host, Scott Seidenberg, with that one. Shout out to him. Hope he's doing great. We'll start with, and I guess, and this is the Yankees, who are just a basket case disaster of what they once were. And we got Clark Schmidt on the mound visiting Max Fried. I made Schmidt a 146 underdog, made the over 9, 9.3 or so. And I feel like I'm pretty close on the total here, but very, very far off on the money line. Wow. So currently Clark Schmidt open 190. Wow, that's a gigantic number. Way bigger than the 150 or so I made it. Over under I made at 9.3. We got 9, looks like about, I guess, minus 110. So it's about split both ways. That feels a little low to me, especially considering how Atlanta hits the ball. I mean, even tonight, they were pretty dead as a doornail after a really good first inning, and then poured it on and really made the New York Mets sweat. Certainly could argue that the Sunday night fades in play here. Long night, probably get in at 4 or 5 a.m. to Atlanta tonight, and then got to get out there and play a night game. Fortunately, not a day game, but still it will be tough for the Atlanta Braves to make sure they're not tired. Their best players seem to play every day, which is maybe good here for an under, because ultimately you wouldn't expect a change in the marketplace and betting it under because Matt Olson is out of the lineup or Acuna is out of the lineup or something like that. So that's probably a good sign. I feel like over. Clark Schmidt is a really great pitcher, great arm. It's a lot of swing and miss in him, but doesn't go deep in games. So that would probably put a little bit of stress on the New York Yankees bullpen. And you could probably even pencil in Schmidt for a shorter than usual outing because the heat, humidity, and things, and really the stress the Atlanta lineup will put on you, probably will get a starter out of the game sooner than you would expect. Maybe that explains a little bit this number being bigger than I made it. It still feels very big on Max Fried, who's coming off of injury, has had a couple, I think, really good starts since he returned, at least one, and a so-so, not so good one. I think it was in Pittsburgh last week. So I'm not sure I trust him just yet as that Cy Young type of pitcher, but I guess there's also the huge difference between or delta between the Atlanta offense and the Yankees offense, which still, at least before this number, still felt to me like it's getting priced like they could hit. But to be frank, I was hoping to win a lot more money betting against the Yankees like I did last season after they had such an awesome start to the year and looked like they're going to win the World Series by 1 million, or at least win the pennant by 1 million games, then struggled to actually even hold on to the AL East. And it really hasn't been an easy run for them since then. But feels like a big price. I'm not really looking to back, or excuse me, I'm not really looking to fade Atlanta at home, even with potentially tired legs. It might even be one of those things that it carries over to Tuesday more so than that, I guess, no batting practice type of day. When you get off the plane, you get home, you get to sleep, get in late, it probably drags a little bit more on Tuesday than it would on Monday. Next, we'll move to Oakland, visiting Atlanta, or visiting St. Louis. Just did Atlanta. We got JP Sears from those Oakland Athletics, and we got Miles Michaelis for the St. Louis Cardinals. So Sears, I made a pretty big underdog, plus 167 on the road. It looks like it opened 170s. That's pretty close, but it's climbed since then up to 182. Over under, I had it 8.5. It looks like it opened 8.5. All the juice to the over. So it's a little bit more than I was expecting. Has moved a little bit higher on the over number, even more. Now you're getting plus money on under if you're looking under 8.5. So if you're an under player there, probably wait till 9. If you're an over player, I'd grab it before you get to that 9 number, though. Ultimately, I sometimes believe, or oftentimes believe, in selling juice to get a push, because ultimately that money returned to you doesn't hurt you or doesn't leave your account and never come back. JP Sears, big fly ball pitcher. It's going to be a much different scenario for him in St. Louis versus Oakland, especially against the St. Louis team that swings for the fences. And I think part of why they've struggled so much this year is there's a lot of randomness in a lineup full of home run hitters that just try to hit the ball over the wall. They haven't got enough of that, clearly, and their bullpen was pretty bad, which we'll get to in a second. But I think it's going to be a tough situation for Sears here. Michaelis has not been a consistent guy this year like he had been in the past, but he does have really good outings in him. He gets one of his easiest outings at home against the Oakland Athletics. As long as he doesn't get ejected in the first inning like he did for throwing at the Cubs a couple starts ago, then I think he's in a good position here to get a fairly easy shot at a win. Probably is one of those fantasy players you want to look at. 2 starts this week. Can't do much better than hosting the Athletics in your first game, especially if wins are important to your stat categories. So I'd look to him. Oakland's been a little frisky lately, but seeing them take a big lead and blow it today at Washington does concern me quite a bit. That even if you want to back them in a really good spot as a fairly big underdog against a team that can't really do much in the Washington Nationals, and it wasn't enough to hold on to a big lead. Those are the little things that drive me absolutely insane. And those are the things that I really don't want to deal with. I'll put it that way. Next, I'll move to Baltimore visiting San Diego. If you've been following around my Twitter or following my plays on pregame, or if you're on Patreon and listening, what's up? But thanks for the support. But of course, you know that I've been backing the Orioles like a million times. Got this really awful picture of this super long beard from when I did 9 weeks or something like that in Europe, and had a a short in my razor, unfortunately, so I couldn't use it because the different power surges or whatever in Europe. I've been using the same photo because it's been pretty good luck, and the O's have been good to me, even though they nearly blew another one. Would have been a second blown save this week with 2 outs in the ninth, but ended up winning this game again, essentially in overtime or extra innings. They're going to put Grayson Rodriguez out there, who I keep wondering if they're going to try to lower his inning load or try to limit his exposure, because he's still a young arm, still one of the best young arms in baseball, if not the best, like #1 prospect on a lot of lists. He's been a lot better ever since his recall from AAA. And honestly, he's kind of been a bad luck type of guy where he's had the bullpen blow a couple of his leads, unfortunately. Great arm, including, I guess, Framber Valdez. That was when he completely outpitched the guy, just throw a no-hitter, and I think has thrown multiple in his career. Had a big lead, and his bullpen couldn't hold it, which does worry me a little bit about Baltimore moving forward and in the playoffs. But and I think even in Toronto, I think 2 starts ago, deserved better. The only, I think, game that was lost by Baltimore in their road trip to Toronto, which I had backed Baltimore in every game of that series. I thought he's really deserved a lot better, and maybe that's good for providing value going forward, because he keeps not being able to get a win, and really his side hasn't been able to get a win. But Baltimore visits San Diego, and Yu Darvish, who's got great stuff still. It's not always harnessed, as you could say about a lot of Major League Baseball pitchers, but when he's on, he's on. But I got to say, he hasn't really been a big favorite much this year. I thought he might be a little bit bigger than I was even expecting based on the way my numbers came out, but I made Rodriguez a plus 133 underdog on the road. I made the over under 8, which feels like 2 things that I kind of just throwing lines in the sand, drawing lines in the sand, throwing lines in the water, and seeing what fish bite. I'd be, I guess, interested in San Diego if they came cheaper than that, but I don't know. I think they'd have to come really cheap or even be underdogs for me to want to go against Baltimore. Felix Bautista, the Baltimore closer, was given the day off after working 2 innings in the win Saturday. He did not work today on Sunday, hence the blown save by Baumann in the ninth. Cano did work the last 2 nights, so he's probably off on Monday or is down, unavailable. And who knows with the Japanese, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but they acquired from Oakland, who's just all over the place. Fujinami, I think it is. He is terrifying to me. Throws like 100, probably terrifying to everyone against him as well. Throws 100, 102, 103 with a big slider as well. But also throws and hits the backstop from time to time. It's kind of amazing. Major League Baseball pitcher is still that inaccurate. But I'm looking for Baltimore if they're a big underdog again tomorrow. I'll be looking to back them. Certainly, don't have a number just yet. Kind of hoping was hoping one would pop while recording, but I feel like there's probably some consternation from the odds makers about who's going to start this game. I would guess on the San Diego side, but it could be Baltimore as well if they're potentially trying to get some more rest into Grayson Rodriguez. So we'll see what happens there, but that's certainly a Baltimore lean for now, unless the Padres come way shorter than I'm expecting. And it looks like, I think this is the last game on the card, no writing games that I've seen, and that is San Francisco, the Giants hosting the Tampa Bay Rays. We got supposedly Tyler Glasnow is going to start on Monday. He was supposed to start a couple of different times last week. Didn't happen due to back spasms that had scratched his previous start, and then got an injection, which as someone who's gotten a back steroid injection myself, I really can't imagine, as I knock my microphone off the desk, unfortunately, try to play through not necessarily the pain, but whatever the heck I'm doing right here. And I don't really know what it's going to mean for Glasnow and how he's going to perform in this start. I mean, he's got a great landing spot in San Francisco against a Giants team that really didn't hit against the Rangers at all this weekend. And he's not going to really have to put up incredible numbers, because every time I see Alex Wood starting a game for the San Francisco Giants, it's usually with an opener. Now I see Ryan Walker. It looks like he's going to start, and that's kind of how they've been doing it. A righty will come in, pitch the first or second inning, first and second inning potentially if things go well enough, and then they bring in Wood. But there's also been some, I mean, the Giants have run out of starting pitchers, unfortunately. Alex Cobb was pretty bad today. DeSclafani, I think, is done for the year. And the Giants have been trying these bullpen games, but they're not the experts on that. That's not really been who they've been for years, like it has in Tampa Bay. So that's certainly a side I want to be against. Really, I'd be looking to be against San Francisco if possible, but I can't imagine Tyler Glasnow is going to be an underdog. And I can understand why there is no line out just now, because who knows what to expect from Glasnow. I expect Glasnow to be minus 135 or maybe even higher than that favorite on the road. Over under I had as low as 8, but it's a really tough park to hit home runs in, and pretty low scoring park in general. San Francisco plays really well at home. I feel like why they're even in the playoff hunt is based on how tough they are to beat at home. Tampa has certainly not been playing great for a while now, but ultimately I just don't know that I want to go against Glasnow, because just in case he's good, San Francisco can't hit him and he can mow through him. And I feel like Alex Wood's going to have a real tough time putting up zeros, just because it's him and then also a lot of his bullpen, which are two things I don't really trust at this point in the Major League Baseball season. With that said, San Francisco is so good at home, as likely a home underdog. It's probably going to be a no play for me. So I think it's now time for the ultimate best bet portion of the show. Of course, if you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. Same thing for Spotify as well. Appreciate all the support, of course, and I also appreciate you guys going through what is a soccer feed, I guess, to get some baseball stuff as we're trying to wrap up this Major League Baseball season. And soccer hasn't really gotten to full force just yet. There's only a few leagues started this weekend, but that'll be coming thick and fast really soon. So stay tuned, get ready for that. Follow me on Twitter, of course, _G Warner. Slide some DMs if you have any questions, and check out my Patreon, patreon.com/G Warner. That's your best spot for the best bang for your buck, to get as much information and access to me as possible. I think the guys on there, I don't know if I have any women followers yet. If I do, please correct me. But the guys on there are generally pretty happy with how quickly I get back to them. We're trying to kind of come up with a way to make everyone pleased and get everything in the place so that the boys can go drink some beers and put some bets in. And so we're working on coming up with the best solution for that. Of course, open to all feedback, comments, suggestions, and all that sort of stuff. So slide in there if you'd like to, because I think that's the best way to make this all work. So you're not just listening to a podcast recorded at 11 p.m. Central Time on a Sunday evening and then hoping that everything is still viable almost 8 hours later or something like that. Not 8 hours later. What am I talking about? Like 15 hours later. So this is the _G Warner on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find me. Patreon as well. Check the link below. Good promo code if you're not a member at BetOnline. Don't have any money there. Go check it out. Get a bonus. This is Major League Baseball edition of Betting the Pitch. Double entendre there. But I gotta give the best bet, ultimate best bet for Monday's Major League Baseball card. And for that, I'm going to go with the under 7.5 in the Houston Astros, Miami Marlins, I guess, interleague matchup on Monday night. Don't blame me at all if you want to play under 3.5 or maybe 4 on the first 5 innings total. That's always a good idea, I feel like. But 7.5 is a pretty key number in the total game. And it's getting odds right now. Might even see 8 before this kicks off or first pitch is thrown. But 2 good starting pitchers should miss bats, and I don't expect a lot of runs to be scored. So go under 7.5 in the Houston-Miami Marlins Major League Baseball game on Monday. And that'll do it for this, I guess, MLB edition of Betting the Pitch. Please slide into DMs, leave some comments, leave a 5-star review, do those sort of things. I will certainly pay most closest attention to those type of things when going through and trying to make sure that I'm doing what you guys are looking for. As always, thanks to the support. And I think unless there's anything else I need to cover, which I hope there isn't because I can't think of anything at the moment, then everyone, I hope, has a great rest of your Sunday night. Get ready for, hopefully the Sunday scaries aren't too bad, but we got a lot of money to be made. Soccer season's firing up. Should expect Serie A Italian soccer podcast tomorrow. I'll try to do that during the day at some point, and then German Bundesliga as well coming sooner rather than later. So check you all soon. Hit me up on wherever you can, the _G Warner, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Not there, never mind, but Patreon as well.